As we continue looking at epithelial tissues, I had mentioned previously that epithelial tissues form glands. So what's a gland? Well, glands can be either individual cells or multicellular organs that are composed primarily of epithelial tissues. So they secrete substances either to be used somewhere else in the body or to get out of the body, elimination of waste. Glandular secretions include mucus, hormones, enzymes, urea. We could go on forever. So we have two major types of glands. Endocrine glands, endo, think inside. They do not have a duct and they secrete their products called hormones into the blood. Then the blood transports those hormones throughout the body to cause something to happen. So hormones are simply chemical messengers. They cause an action to occur, or in some cases, actions to not occur elsewhere in the body, such as your adrenal glands secrete hormones like cortisol and aldosterone, but also estrogen and testosterone. And of course, those get secreted from the gland into the blood, and then it travels throughout the body. In contrast, exocrine glands, on the other hand, exo, think outside. So, oops, sorry about that, guys. I hit my mouse and everything went crazy there. So if you look at these cells right here, these are epithelial cells. So they just sort of sink in, or invaginate is the term we use for that. And it just burrows down into the underlying connective tissues. So these glands are going to secrete through a duct. A duct is simply a passageway that something moves through. So it's an epithelial lined tube that whatever this gland makes, and it looks like it may be a sweat gland. So this is a gland in the skin. So these tissues down here, these cells of this tissue are going to make a product, and then it is secreted through this passageway, a duct, a tubular structure, onto a surface or out of the body. So we're going to talk about glands, exocrine type glands, in A&P 1. When you get into A&P 2, your first chapter will be all about the endocrine system and the glands that make it up. Exocrine glands can be classified as either unicellular or multicellular. Uni, of course, means one. So unicellular glands typically are not going to have a duct, and they're going to be located close to the surface of the epithelial cells or epithelial tissue. The most common type of these unicellular exocrine glands are the goblet cells. So you find goblet cells in simple columnar epithelial and also in the pseudostratified columnar. Multicellular glands, well, you know what multi means, more than one, right? So multicellular glands, of course, contain numerous cells that work together to produce a secretion. So the cells are often arranged in clusters called acini. So acinus means grape. So it's like a cluster of grapes. And then the clusters of cells produce the secretion, and it moves from the cells into ducts that are small. The small ducts then merge into larger ducts, and one large duct transports that secretion out to the surface of the epithelial tissues. So these multicellular glands are also usually surrounded by a capsule. Think of a capsule just like you do a Tylenol. It holds everything together and inside, right? So here, if you look at this image, the green out here is the capsule, but it also extends down into the tissue and separates it into little areas we call lobes. When we classify glands, sometimes we simply classify them by how they're made. So simple glands have a single unbranched duct. Okay, so simple glands, one duct, one duct, one duct, one duct, one duct. Okay, all right. Now, compound glands have branch ducts. Let's look down here. Duct, 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 all merging together. Duck, duck. I feel like I should be saying duck, duck, goose. Yeah, guys, I'm sitting here talking to my computer. Sometimes I have to find humor where I can. All right, so the compound glands have branch ducts. The glands can also be classified according to the shape of the secretory part, the part that makes the secretion. So the gland is called tubular if the secretory parts and the duct have the same diameter. If the secretory part forms an expanded sac, okay, like you see right here, expanded sac, those are called acinar. Here you see everything's the same diameter. That's simple. Or called tubular, I'm sorry. And here you have a little bit of both. So you have part of it is tubular, part of it's acinar. So we call it tubuloacinar. All right, how's that for some terminology? A much more useful means of classification of ducts is to look at how they secrete. Merocrine glands package their secretions into vesicles. Remember, vesicles are containers. And then they release those secretions by exocytosis. The glandular cells remain intact, so they're not damaged by producing the secretions. So some examples of that are your lacrimal ducts that produce your tears, your salivary glands, and also some of the glands within our pancreas and within the stomach. Apocrine glands produce their secretory products when the cell's apical part, remember that's the free surface, pinches off, releasing the content. Now, after that happens, the cell repairs itself so that it can continue to do its job and secrete more of the product. This is how the mammary glands work, and also your ceruminous glands in your ear that produce earwax. And your holocrine, think whole, entire. So the glands are formed from cells that accumulate the product that they're making. The entire cell then breaks apart or disintegrates. So the holocrine secretion is a very thick, viscous mixture of both cell fragments and whatever the product was. So the ruptured dead cells are continuously replaced by other epithelial cells because the entire cell is being secreted. So we have these types of secretions from our sebaceous glands that produce oil for our skin.